The WNBA draft ratings are officially in, and boy, oh boy, do we have some things to talk about.
Let's address the obvious, the elephant in the locker room. You know exactly who we mean. Geno Auriemma, the UConn legend, the master of passive-aggressive sound bites, and seemingly the unofficial president of the Anybody But Caitlin Clark fan club. His prized star, Paige Bueckers, just had her WNBA draft moment. But instead of the media frenzy we saw when Caitlin Clark went #1 overall last year, what did we get? A subdued reaction. And, honestly, a harsh dose of reality.
Last few months, the mainstream media, they have tried to convince us that Paige Bueckers is a draw. Me personally, I think she's a star, but I'm not exactly convinced that she is a draw.
Let's not sugarcoat it. Paige Bueckers' draft viewership didn't just underperform. It flopped compared to Caitlin Clark's. Around 1.3 million people tuned in for Bueckers, a respectable number on its own. But when Caitlin Clark declared for the draft last year, a staggering 2.6 million showed up. Double the audience, double the hype. And if you think that's just a coincidence, you clearly haven't been paying attention.
Find a lot of stars, but there's only a handful of draws. There's only a handful of people over the past 40 or 50 years who have the impact, the drawing power to elevate the product into the mainstream.
The media has been bending over backwards trying to anoint Paige Bueckers as the next face of women's basketball. ESPN's been rolling out highlight reels, airing feature interviews, and even squeezing in that trademark Geno Auriemma smirk during post-game presses to keep the narrative alive. But here's the reality. No amount of Connecticut mystique or coach speak can hide what the numbers scream. Caitlin Clark is the draw. Full stop.
Whether or not Paige Bueckers is a star or a draw, that remains to be seen. Judging by the ratings for the Dump Diver draft the other night, Paige Bueckers is not a mainstream draw yet. WNBA drew 1.3 million viewers the other night for the draft on ESPN. Now, that number, it can be credited 100% to Paige Bueckers because every other player involved was completely unknown.
This isn't about Paige Bueckers lacking talent. She's got game. No one's denying that. But star power, that electric pull that fills arenas and dominates sports talk, that belongs to Caitlin Clark. These draft numbers weren't just stats. They were the basketball audience voting with their eyes, and they weren't buying into the Geno-led hype machine. Let's be real. Geno Auriemma's legacy is untouchable. The man's won more championships than most franchises. But somewhere along the way, his commentary stopped sounding like expert analysis and started feeling a lot more like jealous uncle energy.
1.3 million is a great number for the WNBA. It is significantly below what Caitlin Clark drew last year. Matter of fact, it's 50% lower than what Caitlin Clark drew last year.
Know the type. The one who shows up at Thanksgiving, tossing out passive-aggressive jabs like, "That's nice, but back in my day." Geno's been pulling that move on Caitlin Clark for 2 seasons straight now.
Great college player, like Caitlin was, the delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart. There were actually odds on she's 3rd or 4th in betting odds on being MVP of the WNBA. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name. Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning.
He's spent 2 seasons downplaying her numbers, minimizing her impact, and constantly reminding anyone who would listen that her fans are delusional. Meanwhile, his star pupil just got overshadowed by someone who, spoiler alert, didn't need to wear a UConn jersey to become a national icon. The UConn PR machine might still be chugging along, but the wheels are clearly starting to come off. During the draft broadcast, the vibe was off, interviews fell flat, names were butchered, and the energy was non-existent. It felt like everyone in the room knew they were standing in the long shadow of last year's main event.
With Anissa and Rakia. And we are holding it down right now. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
It's okay.
Sorry. What?
Go ahead, say your name.
Cheyenne Zellers. I'm so sorry. That is embarrassing. Cheyenne, I apologize, by the way. That's so...
Even longtime broadcaster Tim Wilson didn't mince words, admitting off-air that the difference between this year's draft and last year's was night and day. And he's right. One featured a star who made history, The other featured a star the league is desperately trying to manufacture.
25, second most viewed WNBA draft of all time, with an average of 1.25 million viewers, with a peak of 1.46 million viewers, up 119% versus 2023. And I know what the question may be. 2023. Well, Ben, just out of curiosity, because we're all curious around here, right? We all want to be well informed. What is it compared to the 2020?
So let's zoom out for a second. Why do ratings even matter this much? Because in pro sports, ratings aren't just numbers, they are dollar signs. They drive ad spend, sponsorship deals, TV contracts, the whole machine. A 49% drop in viewership isn't something you just shrug off. That's a marketing crisis. That's a boardroom panic. That's someone at ESPN getting a very uncomfortable Zoom call from their boss.
Down 49%. 49% of the audience said, yeah, I'll go watch paint dry instead. In fact, some people, Jason Whitlock, he didn't even realize the WNBA draft took place the other night. He found that out the next morning, that Paige Bueckers and the WNBA draft had actually taken place. Last year, 2.45 million, peaked with 3.09 million, up 307% from the previous high back in 2004.
Here's where it gets especially awkward. ESPN and the WNBA spent months hyping Paige Bueckers like she was about to carry the torch into a new era. They tried to replicate the Clark playbook, feature stories, non-stop coverage, teasers of a generational moment. But the public didn't bite. And why would they? When you've got the original still lighting it up every night, why settle for the knockoff?
601,000 from 2004. So 2024 was up 307% from 2004. 1.06 million women viewers was the 2024 draft. Now here we go, folks. This is when we get into the nooks, into the crannies, and into the fun.
And let's not forget social media. Twitter was ablaze the moment those numbers dropped. No Caitlyn, no ratings. One viral post read. Another said, they tried to replace the sun with a flashlight. Brutal, but accurate. The public isn't confused. They've made their choice. Caitlin Clark isn't just a part of women's basketball. She is women's basketball right now.
Was last year's draft such a big deal? Well, Caitlin Clark was getting drafted. Reason number one, Caitlin Clark getting drafted. Reason number two, why it was such a big deal. Well, Caitlin Clark was going number one overall. And the third reason why, calling a spade here, these three women, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Cameron Brink. Perfect storm. A perfect storm, a perfect...
And that's exactly what's driving people like Geno Auriemma crazy. It must sting, right? To spend decades building the most iconic brand in women's college hoops, only to watch a player from Iowa steal the spotlight. Caitlin Clark did what no one outside of UConn has done in years. She made women's basketball must-watch TV. She turned regular season games into headline news. She made college gyms feel like NBA arenas. And she did it all without Geno's help. In fact, she did it despite the constant side eyes from people like him.
Didn't you tell us that in 2004 it was 601,000? My point exactly. They still haven't rebounded from the days of 2004. They still haven't managed to maintain that same audience from 2004 until Caitlin Clark showed up. Until Caitlin Clark arrived on the scene, and then they're going to boast about a measly 1.25 million. You guys want to know what's funny about 1.25 million? 1.25 million is closer to the 601,000 in 2004 than it is to the 2.45 million in 2025. We're already closer to 2004 numbers than we were to 2025 numbers.
This whole saga exposes the real issue. The WNBA and its media partners are still clinging to outdated formulas. They think they can build a superstar by committee, hit the next face of the league button, and fans will just follow. But you can't fake charisma. You can't fake gravity. And Caitlin Clark has both in abundance.
1 million people disappeared. 1.2 million people, to be fair, disappeared. We can spin that as many ways as we want. The trend is already coming back down. The trend is already coming back down. Juju Watkins next year draft, 1.09 million. Oh, another 1 million view draft. But we went from 2.4 to 1.2 to now 1.09. Who's after Juju? My point exactly. We're already forecasting a 2027 draft of 650.